Oh, yes. The CONCACAF Council has been summoned, reunited once again. My brothers in arms. As much as we are rivals in CONCACAF, it is time for us to face the dangers of CONMEBOL, a Copa America, which we are actually very lucky to be participating in. Is going to test all of our mettle, test where we've all been, we do not have our fallen brother, Rogelio, from Panama with us anymore, sadly. He's no longer covering Panama, which we were talking about is kind of a shame because it's a good moment for Panama. They're kind of in a good way. But no matter, we still have the GOATs. Eddie from Costa Rica, Josh, of course, covering Canada, JD, the Jamaican GOAT, and we have a new one, Jack, here to represent Mexico with a Fire L Tree jersey. How you doing, Jack?
I'm doing great, guys. Honored to be the newest member of the CONCACAF Council. Ready to get into it.
Thanks. Yeah, man. The biggest complaint about the CONCACAF Council that we've had in the comments is that people don't feel like the Mexico representative was truly an El Tree fan. So I think wearing an El Tree jersey is definitely a good, way to start. But can you reassure viewers, because you have a very American accent, there might be some doubts about your fealty. Can you reassure viewers that you are indeed an El Tree fan?
Yes. I've had my ethnicity doubted many times, but I can assure everybody watching that I am a Mexican national team fan. Do not worry. This is not just a costume.
I'm not gonna lie. It sounds like your comments, they just want to hate the dude who represents Mexico. And your problem is like the last two people you've had are like really likable dudes. And I think you got to find like a hateable character. I ain't gonna lie. Jack seems very charismatic. So I don't know if this one's gonna work out either. Like I feel
love
like
to hate, bro.
Hate the Mexico dude.
I'd be curious what the comments think. Harder job, Mexican national team manager or representing Mexico on the CONCACAF Council? I'd be really curious what the people are thinking with that.
Yeah. It'll be fun to see what those comments say. But welcome, Jack. So, guys, we've all played a few friendlies, except leading up to Copa America, except Jamaica, right? Have you guys played any friendlies? You have?
No, we played two World Cup qualifiers though. Remember, you guys got buys to the World Cup. You guys should have been playing those games.
Even though Josh is hosting like 10 games and he got a free ticket to the World Cup. That's crazy to me. You got 10 games and you got a free ticket.
So how are we feeling? Just sort of give us the result of the last few games that you've played, whether it's friendlies or World Cup qualifiers, and then just kind of, what have you learned from that before we go into Copa America? You want to start with Eddie?
Yeah, so, I mean, for the guys that have been around here for a while, it's a different me, right? I'm smiling. I'm happy. So, like, what changed? First things first, we got rid of that miserable Luis Fernando Suarez and got a new coach, Gustavo Alfaro, who's got CONMEBOL experience, was with Ecuador, took them to the World Cup, and now he's kind of leading in the new guard for us. We had two World Cup qualifying matches, and albeit, take the results with a grain of salt. It was St. Kitts and Nevis and Grenada. So, 2-4-0, 3-0 victories. Nothing to really hang your hat on, but I think for us it was more uplifting because even though those aren't the premier CONCACAF opponents that you would expect in World Cup qualification, I remind everybody that Luis Fernando Suarez needed a bogus red card and the last 10 minutes to beat 10-man Martinique in CONCACAF Nations League to qualify for the semifinal in the first place. So that's not something that I'm going to take for granted. The fact that we're back at a place where I can look at the opponent, understand they're inferior, and not be worried about how the match is going to transpire, that's a new world for me. I haven't felt like that since Gustavo Matosas left, and we got stuck with two back-to-back bad coaches. So I think for us, getting in these new players, and the big story is really finding the replacement for Keylor Navas. Keylor Navas, who shocked everybody with his retirement. I think everybody was expecting him to at least be a part of Copa, but it sounds like in his interview, he felt like that it would be selfish of him to continue on. So he kind of wanted to start that process on his own, let us find our new number one. And I think when you see our average age of the first two World Cup qualifying matches being around 24 years old, Like, that's a good sign for us. And we have a lot of guys right now that are on European radars. Gerald Taylor actually just got a loan approved. He's going to be leaving Saprissa to go to Hearts in Scotland to join Kenneth Vargas, who's there. And I think he's just going to be the first of many this summer that are going to start making their move overseas, and hopefully not to these random places like Cyprus or Romania that I've been hearing some other players go, but to actually some premier leagues in Europe. And I think you're seeing that what I've been talking about, what feels like for forever, but for the last 2-3 years, kind of like a generational change for us in this new guard. I think there's a lot to be happy about for Costa Rica going into Copa, regardless of how this tournament goes. We're smiling again, and we're happy people, right? Like, our motto is pura vida. Like, we're happy again. So nobody can knock the smile off my face for now.
That's great. That's great, man. It's good to see Costa Rica maybe making something of a comeback, because they were a big three in CONCACAF for a long time, you know? Josh.
So I want to make it clear that regardless, Eddie was always smiling on this council. Whether he thinks he was in a bad mood or not, he's just that smile was on his face. It would be like
wrong.
Yeah, it could have been a couple cervezas. I'm not sure, but he's always in a good place. That's
you need that sometimes.
Exactly. It's why he's loved here. But similar to Eddie, I think since the last time we've done CONCACAF Council, Canada 2 has a new manager from the red, white, and blue, borrowed managers from our neighbors. And I was really excited about it. Before we went live here, I was telling you guys just the issues with John Herdman, him wanting to step aside. He left. We had Biello for a while, had some pretty poor results. There wasn't a lot to really look forward to with this group. They were underperforming. We didn't know if we had money to bring in a proper manager. Even when John Herdman got this job years ago, there was a lot of heat. A lot of Canadians didn't like the fact that we grabbed the Canadian women's national team manager and brought him over. It was frowned upon, but John, did some really good things. So looking at the options, like I said, I always believe that Jesse Marsh would fit this team. I thought the player pool suited what he wanted to do. I had some question marks around if he could, do what he did at the club level and without the day-to-day to be able to take a national team and excite them and get them to play the style he wants to do. First half of the first friendly, after Canada somehow locked up the Netherlands and then France. I can't remember the last time we played opposition like that, so it was exciting, but I was afraid again it was going to be a big wake-up call. So the first half with a new manager against and we were away. We went to Rotterdam for the Netherlands match. First half, it was a little awkward, but it was fine. Not too many complaints. A couple good chances we had. It was 0-0. And then it just seems like this Canadian side ran out of speed. We talked about Marsh pressing and what it would mean, and if this team could do it consistently throughout a match. And it was like two completely different teams showed up from the first half versus the second half. Team got picked apart, lost 4-0, and now we're like, okay, what's Jesse going to do? How is he going to bounce back from this? Because that was a disastrous second half. But he stuck to his guns, and I respect that. He went out with the exact same starting 11, just swapped out the keepers and put in Canada's actual starter in Crepeau. And we went pretty much toe-to-toe with France. He adjusted a few things. I think the way that we pressed in the Netherlands match obviously had to be adjusted. It looked like this team didn't run out of gas like the way they did, made some proper substitutions as well, and really found some players that are, I think, going to become Jesse Marsh style players. Made some big calls as well, which I'll get into. But all in all, they're friendlies. A lot of people were using the example that, they gave the French like a meal that they weren't impressed with, so they just kind of gave it back. That's what it was like playing Canada. So, take it with what you want. And Mbappe didn't start. He came off late, but a 0-0 against France in Bordeaux in Jesse Marsh's second match, I'm going to take it. And I noticed some changes from how this team was playing, and Jesse was able to implement what he wanted to do. And I really believe from seeing him talk in the media, I've asked him a few questions. He's grabbed players that I think he believes will suit his style. He's adapted, and I think he's made a really good impression so far. So I'm positive. This is 2 games in. You'd imagine the more time he gets, hopefully we'll get better. The gauntlet of Netherlands, France, Argentina was never going to be easy, but I like the start we had, and I'm a little bit more optimistic going into Copa America.
If I could interject, it's not my proudest moment, but I'm a former Red Bull season ticket holder.
Oh yeah.
And this goes back to the days before Jesse Marsh. But I remember like going to watch Jesse Marsh coach teams in Red Bull Arena was actually some of the most fun that I had watching ball live. So when Canada announced that hire, I raised an eyebrow. I actually kind of like it. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, those were some good Red Bull
Dude, it was a
teams.
great.
Good hire for Canada.
We needed the MLS teams to do so, but hey, I'm not asking questions. I'm just I was afraid of what we would maybe end up with, and I would take Jesse every day of the week.
The MLS Canada men's national team coach.
We will not be referring to him as that.
Hey, that is his official title.
That is his official. Yeah, that was part of the deal.
All right, JD, perhaps the most popular CONCACAF Council member, if you read comments. What's up, man? How you doing?
He's blushing and he can't even speak.
Oh, wait, your sound is gone.
Yes, sir. Well, I would say that I'm okay because we got the 6 points. But we had played Dominican Republic, and we had played Dominica. And I swore we were playing Barcelona and Manchester City. Because the game did not went well. The only thing we can say, we got 6 points. But and a lot of persons remind me of a lot of key players injured and also players suspended and decide that they're going to take extra break as well. So you know that Leon Bailey, Damari Gray, Andre Blake, Amari Bell, Ethan Pinnock, they all weren't there because of all sorts of injuries, even Latibo there and as a few others as well. So we had a mixed squad between JPL players and also other imports from England as well. But it should be a solid squad because we had a full 11 of players that rotated out of the starting 11 naturally. So that should have been good enough. And I want to say that I don't know what amount of cash they're spending in Damrep because they look like they pressed way off the park in Kingston as well. And we keep on having this complaint that the field is not good, but yet still it's good for every other team that played us. So something is just wrong with we and playing the football the way that we think we desired it. I have a problem. I do believe that it's the coach's setup that keeps on draining the players after 60 minutes because the Dominica coach came out and stated that he analyzed that every single players Jamaica gets after 60 minutes, they are pretty much done. So they can attack them after that point. We started off pretty much confident against Dominica in the second game. And in 10 minutes time, we realized that, okay, maybe Dominica is a little bit better than we are not as good as what we actually think. Because in the first 10 minutes, we should have been 2-0 down. It was what he passed to our keeper, couldn't tap it in the empty net. And after that, we had to adjust because we had a young kid called Karai Anderson. He's around 19, 20. He brought back the game for us, and we won the game eventually, but it was not an impressive look, to be honest. Even with the players that we had, we should have done much, much better. So I'm happy that we got the 6 points, but we wanted some commanding displays from individuals that pretty much were right, what you would say then, right on the cusp of actually starting. Like, for instance, Damian Lowe is a defensive center back. His game kind of gone at center back, remember? Because we had brought in Deshaun Bernard. He's from Manchester United, but he's at Sheffield at this point because he left from Manchester United based on how they are set up at this point. And you have Ethan Pinnock, you have Michael Hector, so you have a lot of centre backs. So Damian Lowe, they put him in defensive midfielder to see if it could have worked. But he's a good tackler. He's a very good tackler, and he adds incredible energy to the game. But he's just not a natural midfielder, so he doesn't find himself in the pockets. So Dominica exploited him and they took him off at 45 minutes. And from that, we couldn't get control of the game because he can tackle. He just doesn't know the role. So we are short of 2 midfielders in the system that the coach actually plays. So it's like we have a bunch of talent, but we just don't know what to do with the talents that we have. And the coach wants to stuck with his plan. So our players have to fit in his plan. And we don't have the players for that because we don't have 2 Kantes to play in defense, the 2 midfielder role to sit on the defenders, win the ball, and then play to our wide transition forwards, which is the Leon Bailey and the Damari Grace and such. It's just not working. And I don't know how long he's going to take to figure that out. So we got 6 points, but it doesn't look so good. And I think we're in Guatemala has the battle it out for first and second place.
It's crazy that Jamaica didn't look good against those terrible teams. And yet we needed an own goal by Jamaica to not crash out of the Nations League semifinal.
Thank you very much. And that's what I've just said to you. He only can play counter-attacking style, speed transition, use the wings, and drop as deep as possible to win the ball. Once he has to take charge of the game, that can't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Jack.
No, I completely agree. Okay, well, we did not take 6 points from our last window. Mexico got absolutely dog walked 4-0 by Uruguay. And then we had a late winner conceded to the Brazilian backups, scored by none other than Endrick. Man, I don't really know how much positivity people are expecting me to have on this video, but I have almost none. So I'm at least happy that Costa Rica and Canada seem to be trending up, because Mexico certainly aren't. I don't know how much.
Oh no. Looks like Jack's Wi-Fi is as bad as L3 right now.
What just and my hope for progression to the knockouts of the Copa wanes by the minute, quite frankly. I think it's looking more likely that we're going to get grouped at this point than advance to the quarterfinals.
Wow, that bad, huh?
That bad, and also I have a lot of respect for Venezuela and Ecuador. Sorry, I don't think Jamaica have a chance at the Copa. I think both of us might be going home early from that one. And yeah, dude, we have a subpar manager. We don't have a team that's very talented. Many people say it's the worst Mexico side of all time. I would agree. It's the worst Mexico side I've ever seen. Real lack of any game changers on the squad. Our selection is laughable on a game-to-game basis. We're getting bodied by the U.S. We're getting bodied by CONMEBOL teams. Pretty much we can only beat like Panama, Honduras, and Jamaica. Those are about like the top quality opponents that we can beat right now. And I guess Costa Rica as well. We're Central American and Caribbean merchants.
I can't beat you guys. It infuriates me how the U.S. beats you every time you play them. You whoop our ass, and then we just go to U.S. and just like we can compete, and then we beat them and out. Like, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, dude, y'all in Panama, I don't get it. Like the Panama side, I know we don't have a member anymore, but they're like a good team, and they just cannot beat us. I don't know what it is.
Well, Panama, they could win, I think, if they were a little more pragmatic. But I think their coach Thomas Christensen is an ideologue, and that doesn't help their case at times, even though they are a very talented team. I'll just talk about the U.S., man. You got dog walked by Uruguay. We got dog walked by Colombia. I mean, it was probably the worst performance I've seen from the U.S. since Cuba. And that's not exaggerating. Not only were we tactically naive, we lacked any hunger, any desire. Colombia, we were outcoached, outfought, outclassed in every way. It was miserable. And, you know, people were naturally very furious at Greg Berhalter, and the players took a lot of heat as well. And it was bad, but it was a classic Berhalter performance. You know, this team has mostly looked like that under Greg Berhalter. Teams just haven't always had the quality to punish us, right? Especially in CONCACAF. We get away with a lot of shit in CONCACAF. Also because we host. Let's be honest. CONCACAF at home. Berhalter has one win away in CONCACAF in 6 years. That's what a shit manager he is. I'm sorry. There's no other way to put it. But you know, our media ignores all of that, and we you know, I believe that we will win is sort of a rallying cry for mediocrity throughout, you know, the American soccer culture, the media, even some of the fan base. They're still finding ways to like Greg Berhalter. That being said, we played a Brazil. I'm going to preface this by saying I don't know how much Brazil cared about that game. But regardless, we did. And we showed up with the kind of intensity and hunger. And also tactically, we were set up better than I've ever seen. It might be the best performance we've ever had under Greg Berhalter. Very close to that England draw in the World Cup, which at least that was a competitive game. So that probably carries more weight. But that is the U.S. that we expect to see, right? Whatever the result. And yes, you know, Turner made 10, 11 saves. We could easily have lost that game. But we created some chances of our own, and we looked like we were ready to compete with Brazil. And that is the U.S. that we have wanted to see, that we know we can see. It's just bizarre that it took 6 years to see it finally, you know. And so when people say, "Oh, we don't have the players to compete," it's like, no, we do have the players to compete. I'm not saying we have the players to win over big teams all the time, but we absolutely have the players that we can compete with big teams and occasionally get a result if we're set up smart and we get a little bit lucky. And that's what fans want to see. They want to see a performance that is worthy of wearing this crest and representing this team. We haven't always seen that under the Berhalter era. But competitive games are coming. So we'll see what this team looks like in Copa America. It'll probably be somewhere between the Brazil performance and the Colombia performance. I don't think it's going to be as bad as Colombia. I don't think it's going to be as good as Brazil because this is a Jekyll and Hyde team under Greg Berhalter. When we're really under pressure, we can kind of get up for a game. But when we're expected to go out and perform, it oftentimes we don't. So sort of like Canada, we had a very bad performance followed by a good one. And we'll see what this looks like now in Copa America. But speaking of Copa America, let's talk about the team's biggest strengths and advantages and try to keep it under a minute if you can. Let's go the other way around. Let's start with Jack. What are the reasons to be optimistic about this team? What are the strengths and advantages of this Mexico team? And I know you might be scraping the bottom of the barrel here, but give it a shot.
Oh, God. Dude. I don't know. We have a couple guys with some cool neck tattoos on the squad. That's definitely one of our strengths. No, dude, it's hard to look at this Mexico squad and genuinely say, okay, this is going to be the X factor in a win at the Copa America. I think a genuine one is if you look at the center back pairing that we have, led by Johan Vazquez, who I think is Mexico's best defender. They can put in a shift, and we have seen in small sample sizes Mexico's ability to play good defensive football. And we've also seen Mexico, when we decide to, we can play up against the opposition, like we've done with Germany, 2-2 draw recently. And then sometimes we just lay over and die, like Uruguay. So it's hard for me to say that's like a massive plus, but that is, I think it's important for a team, whether it's Mexico, Costa Rica, I feel like have this as well, that like kind of unpredictability, that one punch KO factor, that the trap card that may or may not get played, and we don't know until the game has started. And I think there's a general comfort for us in the Copa America because we have made it to 5 semifinals. We have made it to the finals before. This is not a tournament that, should feel brand new for these players or for the federation, even though, of course, the last one that the CONCACAF teams were invited to was 8 years ago. Like, we've been here, we have demonstrated success, and I think that shouldn't be written off as a nothing burger. I do think it's important that, especially when a team's down bad like Mexico, they have posters on the wall. They have statues that they can look at and say, like, okay, these guys did it, in 2001. Why can't we do it now? Especially when it's a pseudo home Copa America. We can get into the hostility of the Mexican crowd towards our own team later, and maybe in the weaknesses perhaps, but that's what I would probably say for Mexico.
Can I ask real quick, and I'm so curious what your thoughts are on this. Chucky Lozano, this is a World Cup veteran. This is a guy who up until, last week was playing at a decent level, maybe not killing it at PSV Eindhoven. And I don't see many better options for Mexico. Why was he left off this Copa America roster?
Man, you're trying to get me in trouble, dude. I feel like the Chucky Lozano debate is a weird one. For me, I think he's one of the biggest omissions, probably one or two. I would say Julian Araujo, our right back, because he's trying to fight for a starting spot at Barcelona. He was also left off. I would feel like those two guys are the biggest omissions for me personally. The argument for Chucky is that he hasn't done anything since Germany 2018. I think that's a bit harsh. But if we're looking at straight numbers and straight output, you even have guys like Uriel Antuna who have performed better for us than Chucky recently. I think Antuna's benefited from stat padding at the Gold Cup and, playing a bunch of CONCACAF minnows. But the point still stands. And Chucky Lozano I'm not sure if this was a Lozano power move or what it was, but he was he was deemed not good enough or not needed for this Copa America. And I personally disagree with it. I think Chucky is, if he's not the best right winger or left winger we have, he's certainly number 2. But he won't be there. And, on the bright side, that'll get more minutes to guys like Chino Huerta, more minutes to Piojo Alvarado, who was our only player who didn't embarrass himself against Uruguay, had a great season with Chivas. So that, you can look at it one of two ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. It'll be hard to justify if he gets knocked out of the group stage, right? For the coach.
Or if we
People will
score like
point to
one
that.
goal. Yeah.
They'll point to that and say, well, maybe if we had Chucky. And maybe they're right, maybe they're not. Do you think if Chucky had moved to Liga MX instead of MLS, he would be on the roster?
If he moved to Cruz Azul, probably. But
Really trying to get him in
I don't
trouble.
know. We'll never know.
Yeah.
Just
Tough
hoping
spot.
I'm just saying it
Oh,
seems
bro, I'm
like
never
they're
getting
really
invited.
trying to focus on Liga MX's talent because they also left off Araujo, which, like you said, to me, a guy who's playing in La Liga, pushing himself. I mean, come on, you know?
Well, Pete, you say focusing on Liga MX's talent, but like our entire team is Liga MX's talent, barring like 5 guys. So
Sure, but they left 2
Yeah,
other guys.
I don't know.
Liga MX out too.
Yeah. Well, with the case of Araujo, I wonder if that was a personal decision. Like, I wonder if the player had anything to do with that. I haven't read on it. As soon as I saw he wasn't there, I stopped caring because, the Copa is more important. I wish him the best of luck with Barca trying to break in after a pretty good season at Las Palmas. But, it is what it is. I don't know if Chucky going to Cruz Azul or America, I don't know if that would have influenced it too much. Knowing the ownership of the Liga MX teams, probably.
All right, JD, what is there to be excited about? I know it hasn't looked good for Jamaica recently, but talk to us.
I would say defenders. We have listed a lot of defenders, and obviously my coach is a defensive coach, so I think we're going to be defensively solid. So we should be in all games, and then we should have some fast wingers to get at least a goal, or at least a goal in one of the games. So defending.
Leon Bailey
And
should really help on the counterattack, no?
no, he's not going to help on anything. He's going to be helping his party and his lifestyle. Maybe a new music video or something like that. It's the vibes of Jamaica.
I was just about to say that too. He's dropping an album.
It's the vibes of Jamaica. You understand me? That's what he's all about. So the guy is living his best life and he's a superstar. So
Yo, get me his
DJ
number,
Dance
JD. It
should
sounds
get
like we need
together
to
and
hang
drop a
out.
dance video together on TikTok. I feel like that would be
this is how it goes. You have a lot of these talents because if you flip over to the reggae girls, the biggest star for the reggae girl is actually Khadija Shah. She's born in Jamaica as well, and she plays for Manchester City. They have a problem with her as well to get her to kind of conform to their new regime. And I think both of these guys just don't want to conform to nothing, and they are superstars in the country. So they are pretty much bigger than the JFF. I am honestly telling you that. So they try to get to him to try and convince him to come. They try to kneel to him. He said he wanted to go to his party, and nobody will stop him. So they try to let him come after the first game. They put him on the list to let him come after the first game. Which a man that will be drunk? Why would you even consider that option? They tried to give him extra security guard. I don't know who in the Copa want to do him anything. You understand me? Yes, this guy is just, you know what? Let me just talk about football. Defense. That's where I'm going to stop. We have a lot of defenders and we have some fast wingers. And we have one secret weapon, which is Ronaldo Cephas. He's very fast. You saw him against America. He really put that right back that you had on toast. Yes. So I think maybe that's what they're going to rely on, to be honest, So defense, and we're looking to make games as cagey as possible.
Yeah, I'll say this. I mean, if Jamaica plays like they played against the U.S. in the Nations League, and which it looks like they will, because all those 3 teams are attacking. I mean, Venezuela maybe to some degree, but Venezuela's looked better recently, right? So if Jamaica plays defense and counterattack, they have a shot.
And we have good players as well. Remember, we have good defenders. We have Ethan Pinot that just came back. Ethan Pinot is actually one of the best players in the CONCACAF and the best player for Jamaica. But because he's not the flary type of human being like Liam Bailey, people wouldn't realize that. You understand me? Yes. So he's back. You have Shamar Nichols in good form. Mikel Antonio coming back. And you have good wingers. Damar Gray, he's back now because he had a broken shoulder. So I don't know which condition he's going to be in. But the problem is, some of those players that they brought in, this is my biggest problem. Ethan Pinnock is coming off an ankle injury, so we don't know if he's going to be on minutes restriction. Andre Blake got picked and pretty much looked like he got picked on vibes because he just did a surgery. So They're saying that if we makes it past the second round, no, to the quarterfinals, maybe we can check him to see if he's ready. So a lot of these people that went on the list, they are not in full condition. Amari Bell the same. So even though we pick a lot of people, a lot of them coming off injuries, and we don't know what condition they are truly in. So you could see we have a weakened squad for Mexico game as well.
All right. If Jamaica does get out of this group, though, JD, are you going to sing a
Yes.
song on the next CONCACAF Council? Are you gonna do a
I will
dance for us?
definitely try. I will try and get one of their Leon Bailey new songs. Yes.
You can do an album with him.
Yes.
Josh, why is Canada going to do well in this tournament?
I think this question's pretty easy for me, and it comes down to, I think Jesse Marsh is a big factor. You could also argue it might be a disadvantage if the team isn't clicking, but from what I've seen over the first two matches, you're positive. He's putting players in the right position. I truly believe our pool suited him. We have 27 players right now. We need to cut one more player before the deadline tomorrow. And I don't think I could have picked a better squad if I wanted to. And he's playing the players in their proper positions. It's great seeing a coach come in here and not be afraid to tell Davies, you're playing left back. This is where we think we could use you the best. It allows someone like Liam Miller to come into the squad who fits his system. He's asking a lot out of Kone, Eustachio. He's getting these guys, and there's a really good vibe around him. And seeing how some of the players have talked about him, he's asking and having these honest conversations. And I remember him. He went up to Davies right away and said, why do you like playing for Canada? He was trying to test him, see if he's worthy of maybe wearing the captain's armband, which he did against the Netherlands. Then Eustachio wore it for France. I think he's hitting all the right notes with the guys. It's very early on. It's hard for me to really say Jesse Marsh is going to completely change this, but I think he's done everything right to excite this team, to get them energized and to make them believe they can do it. But at the end of the day, the reason that Canada should be optimistic around this is because of our group. And that's just straight up. It's no different than when the US were in the World Cup and you looked at your group against what Canada had in ours. We have the best path in our group, with no disrespect to obviously Peru or Chile. Argentina could be tricky. And then on top of that, we could potentially get matched up in a very favorable quarterfinal matchup, depending on who we get. And the other brackets just don't have that, with Colombia and Brazil hanging over there. So the reason I think Canada should be excited is because after a really difficult 2023, we got the manager we wanted in. He's hitting all the right notes, and the team just grabbed a draw against France. Never would have thought that happened. And now we're going into a tournament that we haven't played in a very long time. Actually ever. We never played in. I was pitching the Gold Cups where we used to have a couple South American teams come, but no, we never played in a Copa America. So this is brand new to us, but it is an exciting opportunity, and we have the best path to potentially have success. So we'll have to see. I'm excited, and I think the guys will be up for it, especially after the disappointment of the World Cup.
I'll say this. If they can get that draw with Argentina in the opening game, which I think is possible, this Argentina is not the same team that won the World Cup, right? And let's be honest, we all know it wasn't like they walked to that World Cup either. There was, and both their two key players were Messi and Di Maria, and we all know that it's not quite the same now, right? So if they can get a draw in that opening game, I think their chances of getting out of that group are 90%.
I mean, I would obviously take a draw in a heartbeat, but even looking at Peru and Chile, those are two aging teams. That's the argument you see everyone making, is that Canada's young, energetic, and athletic team, where these are very style wise, we match up well against them. And on top of that, whether you got, I don't know. I think Canada's got a bigger advantage playing in the States than Chile and Peru do. So that's another advantage. I mean, our camps are always in Florida, so Canada's no stranger to going down there, especially in January for Camp Cupcake. So yeah,
that should be their primary dual nat recruiting tactic.
I
train in Florida. I went to Florida for the first time for Filippo's wedding this last month, and I was like, oh my god, I get it now. I never wondered why everyone retires in Florida. I was there. I was like, all right, I get it now. This is a beautiful place. Eddie, why are we excited about Costa Rica's chances?
I mean, you're not excited about it, but I think for us, the hiring of Gustavo Alfaro, and I will say this, because of what I do for Costa Rica and this analysis that I kill myself over, I've been, and I'll be a look at me, Louis. I've been involved with a lot of heavy conversations with people in the federation and a lot of front offices from first division clubs in Costa Rica. And the sense that I'm getting is that the investment in Gustavo Alfaro's vision is heavy. And everybody is bought in to what he can do for us as a footballing nation, which is a far cry from what I'm used to hearing, because it was more of, we invested literally in Gustavo Matosas in the same way, and then everything has been sort of a Band-Aid solution for what is a mortal gunshot wound, and it never worked out. And I feel like this is kind of that move where it's, okay, no more Band-Aid solutions. We're looking for long-term play here. So I think when you have a guy that's very familiar with the region, that understands the South American style of ball, is not tactically naive, like some coaches in Panama would be, and can kind of adjust his team as needed based off of, because, you know, football is what it is. It's a matchup of styles. He can adjust us the way he needs to. And even though we were playing what you would consider minnows in CONCACAF, I still felt like he used that as an opportunity to be like, okay, you're not going to play this in about 2 or 3 weeks. Let's see how you're going to do in this system when you have to play it for real in 2 or 3 weeks. So I think for us, it's more of what the vision is and what the long-term play is going to be in terms of making this generational change for us, and having a guy that really understands what this competition means, what the style of play is in this region, being able to adapt and adjust to it, and then being able to bring, which would be my second point, is kind of like that changing of the guard. And we talk about how Panama can be tactically naive because of their coach. I feel like our players can be athletically naive. And you got a lot of guys that aren't fighting for pride. They're not fighting for, I want to win Copa America. You got guys that are fighting for a change of lifestyle, that are fighting for generational change of wealth within their own family. And a lot of players that, with this opportunity in front of them, because they're playing Brazil, because they're playing Colombia. And this is why I always say when the World Cup draws come out, I don't want Costa Rica to have some easy path out, because what you do against low-level teams at this stage is not going to change you. What you do against teams of higher caliber on this stage, you're going to get eyes on you. And now you're talking about a move like what Keylor Navas had all those years ago, where he went from Levante to Madrid, and it's generational change, it's generational wealth, it's club changing, it's club identity. It's for all the teams in Costa Rica that developed him. Like, it just changes everything for us having that platform. So having Brazil and Colombia in your group, yeah, you can feel like it's a wash, it's whatever, but I never looked at it that way. I feel like it's an opportunity for a lot of these guys now with true leadership that has actual vision. I feel like it's an opportunity for a lot of guys to change not only their career paths, but change the trajectory of our national team. And that, for me, is the most exciting part of it. It can go sideways, sure, but I don't think there's any reason, based off of the last 2 years, that you wouldn't go into it with a different approach than you have previously.
All right. As far as the U.S. goes, why are we excited? I mean, we have the talent to get out of our group. There's no question about that, right? The talent is there. Most of our guys have had, I'd say, decent to good seasons, playing at good levels. You know, the roster just dropped. I mean, it was already there, but we just kicked out, Tim Tillman. This is the first time. I think we only had 3 MLS players in the roster. Everybody's playing at either a top 5 league club or a Champions League or Europa League club, most of this team. The talent is definitely there to get out of our group. And to be honest, the talent is there to give a tough game to even the big boys. Whether or not we're going to do it is the question, but the talent is there. I also think another reason to be optimistic is that Panama is naive. And every time we've played Panama, especially at home, he comes after us. Thomas Christensen comes after us, and that plays right into our hands because we're very deadly in transition, especially against a team of, Panama's quality, which is not exactly like a bunch of world-class players. They have some good players, but they hurt themselves by being tactically naive. So if Thomas Christensen comes out like that again, I think getting out of the group is very reasonable, and that's why I'm optimistic. Of course, that's really the bare minimum for this U.S. team, right? Getting out of the group is the absolute bare minimum expectation, which it does feel like is, I'm not going to get into the negative side. We'll get into that right now. But certainly we have the talent to do well in CONCACAF, or I mean in Copa, and that's about all I can say. I'll guess that draw against Brazil proved to the fan base that when we are set up well tactically and when we show up with the right levels of intensity, we can certainly compete with some of the bigger boys. And that is at least evidence that it can happen, because after that Colombia game, the response from a lot of the Berhalter simps was, we don't have the players to even compete, with some of the bigger teams. We don't. And that was nonsense. And I knew it was nonsense. We do have the players. We just don't have the coach. But yeah, we'll see how this team does in Copa America. There's going to be real pressure getting out of that Bolivia game, because Bolivia is used to bunkering against teams, better than the U.S. week in and week out. And I think Bolivia feels like maybe they have a shot. This is still a terrible Bolivia team, right? That's probably their only hope. As far as the negatives, we'll get into that in the next thing. But speaking of negatives, Jack, I know you have a meeting in about 9 minutes. So I'm going to let you go first on this one. Why are we feeling pessimistic? I mean, I feel like you could go for a while here.
He's been doing that the whole time since he joined.
I think I've already touched on that.
You've already touched on it. Is there anything else?
I just want to say real quick, man, I feel like the U.S. genuinely has nothing to worry about with Bolivia. Like, I just want to say that. Like, our U23 team beat them. Ecuador, a national team that is completely allergic to scoring goals, just put 3 past them. Like, I think
until you realize that Berhalter against low blocks, like again, Jamaica's B team at home, at our home, almost beat us. This crazy unlucky fluke own goal, over, and it's not just Jamaica. We've seen this against Panama, Trinidad and Tobago at home. It took us 88 minutes to score on 10-man Trinidad and Tobago at home. So I don't buy that. I don't. Berhalter's terrible at breaking a low block.
I would say Felix Sanchez and Berhalter would be having a very good competition for who is a more inept offensive manager. Like, it's, as a guy who watches a lot of the U.S. and Ecuador, the U.S. offensively are just a much more fluid team than the Ecuadorians. I'm not saying that U.S. is going to win 6-0 against Bolivia. I just really think that the chance of that being an upset for me is 0%. Like, I can't see anything short of like a 2-0 win for the U.S. in that game. I just wanted to say that because I completely agree with your analysis of Panama. I've said many times I feel like they've hit their ceiling with Christensen. He can't get them to play any better than they've been playing under his system with the current crop of players. They're beat better teams than like the odd win against Jamaica and Canada. And that's going to be that. Costa Rica, hey bro, they own in real estate in San Jose. I don't know what the Panamanians are doing right now, but they are colonizing part of the border with Costa Rica. But for some of the other teams,
that was
U.S.
one
Mexico,
game.
they can't.
Yo, we made Rogelio tap.
Bro, they beat you 3-0 back to back. Don't do that.
Yeah, that was one. Yo, we made Rogelio. Rogelio's not here because he didn't make a World Cup.
Oh no,
bro, make a world. Hold timeout. Make a World Cup, bro. Yo, Jack, you're supposed to piss off U.S. fans.
They did. They did make a World Cup. They did make a World Cup, and then they got destroyed in the group stage. Yeah, they got destroyed.
We made the same World Cup. They didn't, but we made the same World Cup, and then they didn't make the World Cup, and we did. That's why. Rest in peace, Rogelio.
Anything else? Any other reasons
to be pessimistic,
Jack, about this Mexico team?
I think the number one thing is that our squad selection is very poor. Like, I think we can go on for a long time about the actual skill level of this team. I'm not the biggest Liga MX diehard, but I do watch a lot of the games, and I watch a lot of our players abroad in Europe. Like, there are ballers here. We just never seem to play the right 11 guys at the same time. It's like we're begging, crying out for Santi Jimenez. We finally get him to start, and then we put Pineda at left wing and goddamn Uriel Antuna out right or somebody else, and then we're going to have another howler at the fullback position and start like Jesus Angulo or something. It's like we just can't seem to get even 9 or 10 of our 11 best guys on the field at the same time. There's always a howler. It kind of reminds me of like early Berhalter. It was like it'd be pretty good, and then it's just like boom, you just have like a triangle of like MLS guys that shouldn't be in the team, and everyone's like, bro, like the answer is there. It's a layup. Just take the layup. You're dribbling back after the 3-point line and pulling up for no reason. Just take the points. So I feel like that's going to be what curses us, because I guarantee we're going to have one midfielder, probably per game, whether it's Charlie Rodriguez or Luis Romo, who should not even be in the squad. They're not even a top 45 player for the Mexican national team. but they're in the pool every time. They're going to be in the squad, and they're going to get minutes. And against a extremely physical Venezuelan midfield, I think we're going to get eaten alive. Jamaica's midfield, I mean, I don't know if you know, bro, I'm one of Damian Lowe's biggest fans on the internet. I think he's going to have a game against us. And Ecuador, Moises Caicedo, RIP, man. Like, I just think we're in for a rough time because I don't think we're going to play our best players where they need to be played. And that's going to sink us because we don't have the talent to overcome both mediocre tactics and poor selection.
Last one. That this way you can leave whenever you need to go. I don't want to keep you here if you have a meeting, but where do you think Mexico finishes in Copa?
Dude. Gosh, that's a tough one. I can't see us beating Ecuador. I really can't. And the Venezuelans, man, I just remember us sleeping on them in 2016, and they got a draw against us back then. And back then, we were the superior team, hands down. I was at that game, and they still held on, and we needed a Tecatito wonder goal to break them down. And Jamaica, like, if Jamaica sits back and plays how they did against the U.S. in the Nations League, do I trust a Mexican national team whose best cam, Jordi Cortizo, probably won't even see the field to break that down? I'm sorry to say it. I do think we'll eventually beat Jamaica, but I think 3 or 4 points is probably the max for this team, and it's going to come down to our goal differential, probably versus Venezuela's.
So do you get out of the
So
group?
I'd probably say 70. I'm saying 75% chance. No.
Ooh. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So hang out as much as you want if you want to jump in, but if you need to go, we understand you have a meeting. Eddie,
Yeah.
why are we
I got about
pessimistic?
13 minutes, so I'll chill until I got to jump.
Yeah. Hang then. Eddie, why are we pessimistic about Costa Rica?
Kayla Navas broke my heart. Still crying on a nightly basis about it. I mean, you look back to Costa Rica's success dating back to, and the funny thing is, like, they've been pumping out the 10-year anniversary of Brazil in 2014. You look back at all those games that we had no business being a part of. Kayla Navas was a big part of that. I said it last time in World Cup qualifying. The only reason we qualified is because Kayla Navas was born in Costa Rica and he wasn't born in Honduras. Because if he was born in Honduras, we would have been Honduras. And I think now the fear for everybody is that, yeah, sure, this was probably internal and they were planning on it on the long term, but we're relying on guys that not everybody is very confident in. Kevin Chamorro, who, oddly enough, this is the game that I'm doing. It's the semifinal where Kevin Chamorro, who plays for Saprissa as their number one goalkeeper, got a yellow card for time wasting, and then 30 seconds later got sent off in the final for completely wiping out a left back that was in on goal, in like a double yellow, and he's gone. So Patrick Sakeda is the one that steps in, and he's the number one for Costa Rica in World Cup qualifying, and he plays in the third division of Spain, like a far cry of even when Kayla was at Levante and he was winning goalkeeper of the year, but he was a first division La Liga premier goalkeeper. So I think for us, the big worry is we're young, we're naive, we have a great coach, but when things break down, do you have that one player that's better than anyone? And this is how I'll play the villain, Jack. When you have the best player that CONCACAF has ever produced and you lose him, how do you replace him? Who's gonna step up? And the fear is somebody gonna step up on this stage with this many eyes on them? That's a hard thing to imagine. So I think for us is like we can play well, and because we're so young, we're gonna have those breakdowns. You're gonna need that one magical moment from a Kayla Navas type, and he's not there anymore. And when he's not there anymore, that's, I think, when you ultimately pay for it. So I think for us, not having somebody like that can be that guardian angel that bails us out when we need him to be, that's really why you're scared, and ultimately why you think we don't get out of that group.
I know you just said that, Keylor Navas is the best player CONCACAF has ever produced. I may or may not agree, but I do think Shaquille Moore has a good shout for that role, to be honest. Like, did you see his 6 minutes against Brazil? This guy is on fire.
He's
No, but
locked
you're
up, isn't he?
100%
Yeah.
right. And you know what? If Keylor Navas was American or Mexican, he would be so much more hyped. I mean, to win, 3 Champions Leagues with Real Madrid, was it, or 2?
It was 3. And if he would have been French, they never would have got rid of his ass for a Belgian giraffe that's still 2/3 of what Keylor Navas was at Madrid. Madrid's like the biggest flaw of Keylor Navas is that he wasn't European.
I agree. I actually agree.
He wasn't European.
He was so disrespected at Real Madrid. So disrespected.
Disrespected at PSG.
Yeah, I agree. But Courtois, bro, his 2 Champions League final performances, they're both pretty damn good.
Do it in the World Cup too.
He did it also.
He didn't do that either.
His team was not good enough at the time. Belgium was not good enough at the time. I think it was what?
Keylor Navas plays for Costa Rica. He had Oscar Duarte.
I understand. That's the comparison that you're using. But I think Courtois have shown that he's a very, very good goalkeeper.
Dude,
this man really
no one's saying Courtois is not good. But Eddie's point is, would they have tried?
He called him a Belgian giraffe.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He's a god. Would they have tried to replace Keylor Navas if he was European?
No, I think Eddie's point is that it's a slap in the face to win 3 Champions League and then throw him to the door.
Yeah,
I think Courtois is incredible, but I agree. It's like if you don't need to replace him. What did he do wrong in that spell? So I agree with Eddie. It was I think it was mishandled and mistreated, but that's what Madrid does. They don't give a crap. They're winners. If they think that Courtois is younger and better, they'll throw someone to the wolves.
And I get it. Like I'm fine. I'm fine with Madrid doing that. That's how Madrid does things. But PSG, who are you, PSG? Yeah. And Donnarumma playing the World Cup, bro. You can't even beat North Macedonia, and you replacing Keylor Navas. PSG was a round of 16 embarrassment. Keylor Navas shows up. They make a Champions League final. They bench him for Donnarumma, and they go back to being a Champions League embarrassment in the knockout rounds. Like, come on, bro.
No, I agree with that. No, Donnarumma has not been good at PSG, so 100% agree there.
Real quick, Eddie, where does Costa Rica finish?
I'd be happy if we get out of the group, but I mean, that's a tough group. Brazil, Colombia. I got a lot of Colombians on my staff at the club I work for, so we've been going back and forth. It's been a lot of fun. But I don't think that we're going to have the super performance in goal that we had to make the games against that we've had against Brazil as competitive as they were in the last few years, because going from Keylor Navas to Patrick Sequeira is a massive drop-off. And I think Colombia is very talented, and I fear what they can do with us. I don't think we can get to 4 points. If we do, great. But even still, I believe like the goal differential is going to nip us in the bud. So I think we get grouped. As happy and as confident as I've been in this entire chat, yeah, I end it with I think we get grouped. But I've always been the realist, and I've always been realistic in terms of what my expectations are. If we can get out, fantastic. Quarterfinal run would be great, but I wouldn't bet it on DraftKings plus 300.
So third, fourth,
third in the group.
You think you're going to beat Paraguay?
Maybe not even beat them, but if we get a draw and don't get dog walked by the other 2 teams, maybe we pick them on goal differential. We don't have to do that to finish third.
I feel like from a neutral perspective, when I look at Costa Rica, I think the biggest weakness for y'all is y'all's defense looks horrendous at times. I mean, I'm a big Alfaro guy. I'm super bullish on y'all's future. I love Alcocer, Zamora, Ugalde. I think you guys have some really good, all like 22, 20-year-old attackers. But Francisco Cabo needs some help in the back, bro. And like Martinique scoring 4 at the Gold Cup, freaking Panama scoring 3 every time they go head-to-head with you guys. Argentina, I know they scored 3, and Ugalde got probably the luckiest goal I've ever seen in my life in that friendly. But Argentina probably should have scored like 7. I just feel like y'all are going to get cut open. Would you agree that the defense is bottom 2 at this tournament?
No, because I this goes back to my point where a lot of people don't understand what's going on in Costa Rica. We got an 18, 19-year-old kid in Jalen Mitchell who played for Alajuela, who wasn't involved in this process at all before. Kevin Chamorro was the goalkeeper. And again, I can show you my paper. He's not going to probably be the goalkeeper there. I think Patrick Cicada is going to take over. I think the system that they're playing now is going to be more of a back three, which is something that I've been adamant about, where in the other competitions that you're mentioning, one was Luis Fernando Suarez was in charge, or two, it was a back four, which are both tactically naive. So I think there are a lot of things in play in terms of the new guard, new goalkeeper, better tactical understanding of what to expect. And I think that Francisco Calvo is not going to be one of the center backs. I think one of the things that you saw towards the end of that game against Granada was that, yeah, we played a 3-4-3, but towards the end of it, you saw Francisco Calvo actually go out as left wing back from his left center back position. Juan Pablo Vargas, who plays for Millonarios in Colombia, and I think, and I've been saying it for about a year or so, is probably our best center back, but Luis Fernando Suarez doesn't know his head from his own ass, never really played him until against Germany, when he actually scored against Germany in the World Cup. So I still think that you're going to see Calvo in more of a wing back position as more of defensive cover, and see a more solidified back three with guys like Juan Pablo Vargas, Julio Cascante, and this new kid, Jalen Mitchell, as sort of that back three. And then on the wing back position, guys that have more defensive 1v1 prowess, like a Gerald Taylor, who's moving to Scotland with Kenneth Vargas, and Francisco Calvo, where they're not going to be relied on to be that critical defending center back that they're normally used to being. So I think because Gustavo Alfaro is a lot smarter than most of the coaches that we've had in the country, I think tactically we're going to be set up where we're going to have a lot of good defensive cover in that back five when we drop into that low block. And then you're going to have the young guns at the top, Ugalde, Zamora, Madrigal, Andy Rojas, and even Orlando Gallo, a guy who plays at the 6, who I think is going to make a big time move based off of his talent and what he's going to be asked to do for Costa Rica. I think that all the pieces line up that we can be solidified in a low block and then hit people in transition and on the counter.
All right, Josh, why are we feeling pessimistic about Canada?
I just want to say quickly, I like that Eddie and Jack both are like, I want to be the villain, but with the smiles on their faces, the viewers are going to eat them up. They can't be the villains. And Jack's been a great addition. I don't know when he's got to go, but there's no way. I know how our viewers for the councils are. They're both going to be loved. As for myself, though, although I use Jesse Marsh as a reason to be optimistic, I'm going to use it the same, just in terms of the timing we've had him here. There's, it's not. I think it'd almost be unfair to expect with the amount of time he's had to take this national team and do something incredible, which I think getting out of this group at Copa America would be. And that's just the case. It may not click. It may not click right away. That happens. We've seen it against the Netherlands, awful second half, and then we've seen a performance like France, but it doesn't mean that he's going to be able to do it. And like a lot of advice that I've talked to with a lot of US fans and guys who've followed Jesse Marsh and just watching back on games is a plan B with Jesse isn't really a thing. And I think it can be looked at as a good and bad thing, because I really respected the fact that instead of changing everything and getting a look at maybe something else he wanted to do, even changing up the shape, he still did the 4-2-2. He took on France with 10 of the same 11 players, stuck to his guns. He just made small tweaks. It just, if things don't go that way, can he adapt? And evidence in the past has shown maybe not. So, if he goes out, he's going to go out swinging. And then the other thing is, so far in the 2 matches, and honestly, just watching Kyle Larin in La Liga this season, it was a tough watch. He had an atrocious season. He never looked fully fit all year. He is our top goal scorer of all time, and I think that does deserve respect. But he doesn't fit Jesse's system, and that was clear from day one. He is not that pressing forward. He does not have the ability to make these type of runs and do things that he's going to ask of his front two. And he looked. I honestly didn't even notice him. I was talking to Alex, and I forgot when he got subbed off, because it was just Osorio came on for him, and he was a ghost as well. So I basically playing with just Jonathan David up front. And I think that he needs to give someone like an Ike Ugbo or a striker that fits his system a little bit more, because that's like when you guys are talking about when Greg would used to put up a starting 11, there'd be an MLS guy there. I mean, Kyle Larin's playing in La Liga. That does deserve respect, but you're the glaring player in this team that doesn't suit how Jesse wants to play. And we did not score in these 2 matches. Kyle Larin missed a sitter. His confidence is low and he doesn't fit. It's just that odd man out. He needs to get someone in that role that can do what he wants and can do it properly. And it's going to work all the way down. And right now, my issue and my worry is how is this team going to put the ball in the back of the net? They've done some really good work defensively, especially in that France match and parts of the Netherlands match. We're seeing players like Bombito, who is a Jesse Marsh type of center back. He's coming into his own. This could be a big tournament for him. Same as Kone. I mentioned Miller, Davies. Buchanan was struggling a bit, but I have faith in him that he'll pick it up. It's just the front two right now. And even Jonathan David just had a couple of big misses, but he's a player I trust, and he's a pressing forward that fits Jesse. It's Kyle Aaron. That's a bit of an issue. And then in terms of Chile, I mean, this is the team. I know that they're aging, but this is their tournament. Like they always find a way to do well.
Oh, yeah.
And if it comes down to that final match, say we don't pick up a point or anything against Argentina, but we beat Peru, it comes down to Chile. Do we have it in us to be able to find a way through? I don't know. And I'm expecting us to finish probably second or third. I'm going to say second because why the hell not? I'll go in here happy and smiling. And I do think it's realistic. I don't think I'm just, saying it just because I'm being biased. I think that it's very early and hard to tell with Jesse Marsh, but what I've seen excites me. If you can make the tweaks and we go on a nice run, yes. But if Chile beat us in the end, I wouldn't be surprised, and I'd be disappointed. But this is a team that has done it year in, year out. They still got a lot of those older players, and I think the last couple of friendlies have been kind of keeping an eye on them. They've been doing well and they've been getting results. So it's not like they're going in not super confident. I know the World Cup qualifying has been a bit of an issue for them, but it seems like their form's turning around a little bit at the right time into a tournament that they're very comfortable in.
I will say, don't underestimate also the new manager bounce, right? That lift that everybody in the team gets when they get a new coach who has, it's also a very inspirational coach, Jesse.
Yep.
Right. He's a good manager. He gets players fired up. And then, here in America, we are stuck with a wet towel of a coach. So it's, I'm not Jesse's biggest fan. I don't think he would have been a good coach for the U.S. either. But in terms of his ability to get players fired up, that's probably one of his biggest strengths.
In the media so far, you see how players have already talked about him. Like I said, he's made a very, very good first impression, and I do think that goes a long way.
Yeah. JD, why are we not feeling good about Jamaica?
Oh, I'm trying to pick the best point, but I'm gonna stick on the coach. All right. Yes, I'm gonna stick on the coach.
Really?
I do believe that. Yes, I think he's having a problem due to the fact that we have a very good pool. I'm going to agree that with Jack as well, because he had said that the Mexico pool is very good. I think that the Jamaica pool is very good. I think we could have gotten all of those midfielders, but I just believe that his system doesn't require those midfielders, and that's our main problem. At this point, we can't adjust in games because of the selection. I do believe that he catch the Jamaican vibes problem, so he's picking vibes players. Jack said he's the biggest fan of Damian Lowe. I think if Damian Lowe can't make it as a centre back, he should not be playing midfield. You get me? But they tried because he brings so much vibes to the team. He has to go on the field. So I just believe that is the only downfall I can see with the team. Him still picking Damian Lowe to pick him on the field, not because he's a good enough central defensive midfielder, because he has to pick him because it's like a vibes thing. You can't take him out because he's a born Jamaican and all of those stuffs. And then forced a system that doesn't really fit the style that's required to get a result on the day. So that's why I'm saying the coach will be my problem. But maybe maybe he might turn up good on the day, but I'm saying that will more likely be the case. Him forcing Damian Lowe against Mexico is what Jack stated. And I can tell you, you talked about Luis Romo. I think Luis Romo will run rings around Damian Lowe, because we just saw them run rings. That means, so what you're pretty much telling me, that means Dominican players are better than Luis Romo. I think you don't give him enough respect, because I've watched that player a long time.
I think it's style, bro. I think it's style. And I think Damian Lowe, if you guys sit back and just bunker down, I think because I do agree his passing range is pretty limited. He is a natural center back, like you said, but I think if you just ask him to go out there and tackle and intercept balls and just disrupt play for the opposition, which is probably what's going to happen with Mexico. I expect us to have possession against you guys in that game. I think he'll be effective. And I think I've seen Luis Romo create like 3 chances in 6 years. So I'm just not comfortable saying that he's going to expose Damian Lowe. I think Lowe's going to get the better of that matchup.
And ironic, the last time he created 3 chances was actually in the National Stadium against Jamaica.
So, JD,
I guess Luis Romo does. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jack.
Go ahead, Jack.
I was going to say, I guess if I'm reflecting on the few highlights of Luis Romo's national team career, I can think Jamaica Gold Cup and I
Jamaica
guess
World Cup
Nations League.
qualifiers.
Yeah, or World Cup
Yes,
qualifiers.
yes.
Yeah, not Nations League. Yeah.
So, but I understand
Does
your
that say more
point
about
right there.
Jamaica? I don't know.
I understand your point right there, Jack, which is fair. But I'm just saying, remember when you're using someone that is going to take up a space, he does the job, which I've started my conversation on, that he tackles well. But after tackling and get the ball, Pete, he just plays the ball straight back to the opponent. So you're just already unbalanced, and you're just opening up all the two outside what we would say the wide channels for people to run into. He did it against United States. Pete, you were watching. He got the ball, but he just never knew what to do. And that's the problem. That's why I said my selection is my problem, Jack. Because now the only thing we have to rely on is a young kid called Karai Anderson. So he's the only one can play beside him because he has the natural ability to tackle and screen as well, and also run from one box to the box. So we have to rely on a 19-year-old just to play.
Hang on. Did you say you want him to run from box to box, the center back?
Yes. No. He's a no. We play defensive central.
Okay.
Defensive central with Karai Anderson because we have already gotten the other center backs. The reason why we are having this discussion is because he can't make the defense line, Pete, and they still want to keep him on the field, and we don't actually have any midfielders.
JD, why, since Leon Bailey retired from the national team, well, I want to know, why did they include him in the roster?
I think the coach said he is his best player, and obviously, if you look at the style as to how he plays, you tend to want to believe that as well, because what he does, he plays like a 4-2, then two more, and then the striker and also a roaming player. So because Leon Bailey doesn't have the defensive solidity, he doesn't play him on a right wing channel. He works him in that middle role, that central forward role behind the striker to do his thing right there. So he's always like an elite attacker because he's an elite attacker for Aston Villa. So that's why he wants him in the team. So he's trying to convince him. But the coach came in when we had problems. The JFF had problems with Leon Bailey because Leon Bailey is like an entity on his own. So he said he wants certain things. All right, let me break it down faster. You have a what you call that now? You have like in Jamaica, you have a lot of players that goes to academy. One of the biggest academy in Jamaica is called Phoenix Academy, which is owned by Craig Butler. So Craig Butler is the manager of Leon Bailey and Dujan Richards of Chelsea. So now he's convincing a lot of the kids them to come and join the academy. And obviously, Jamaica is a poor country. So a lot of these kids are coming out of the ghettos. So they would love an opportunity to become millionaires as well, because they're seeing the big highlight of Leon Bailey and Dujan Richards. So he's convincing the kids to come to his academy and then holding them hostage to hostage from the JFF, because some of them are the best players in the country at all ages. So when the JFF sends request to get the players, he's saying no, this one can't come unless the next two that he thinks is good enough to come. So not the coach of each said team of the U20s or the U17s. It's Mr. Butler decides who wants to come. So that's what he did with the national team just a while ago. Held the national team at ransom to say that if the only way Leon Bailey comes, you have to accept and explain the national team and also accept a few players in the U20s coming up for qualifiers. So he's like running Jamaica's football. So he's the Don of Jamaica.
So
that's
just quickly to go back to Leon Bailey, the reason they put him on the roster, even though he had already said I'm not playing for Jamaica anymore, was that you think a last ditch attempt to convince him.
They were in discussion with Craig Butler, and they came to the conclusion that there are 5 things that you have to follow to get the god, the new god, Leon Bailey, and and the rest of the players. So they're just holding the federation at ransom, and I'm actually going to pick up for the federation this time. You cannot be a player and decide that you have to put and explain the national team. Really, Pete? If, or for instance, Balagan comes to you and said that I have a brother and he has to make United States or I'm not going to turn up,
No, I
how
agree with
America
you.
would have taken
I
that?
agree with you.
That is disrespectful,
Yeah,
man.
that's what
And I
Giannis
think
does in Milwaukee.
thank you.
Yeah, that is
That's
crazy.
exactly what we're talking about. That, and
That's crazy.
believe me, this time Jamaica, Pete, I think that his fans are turning against him for the first time. You're gonna
Yeah.
see under this video, they are actually turning against him because that is the limit now. This is
Yeah.
really disrespectful.
No, I
Hey,
agree.
hey,
When one
guys,
player
I
becomes bigger than everything, then I agree with you.
I gotta bounce, but I got 3 really quick questions that I'm curious about. Josh, for you, who is your first choice 2 CBs for Canada? Are you going Cornelius and Kamal Miller, or do you want I forgot the guy in MLS. What his name
Bombito.
is? Who you going?
Bombito,
Bombito.
Bombito and Cornelius for sure. We
Okay.
needed a Bombito's Jesse talked about it on his podcast before, like his final goodbye on the Call It What You Want podcast before, and said like there's a couple players that really are playing for clubs that suit my system, with Bombito being one of them, obviously under Chris Arms, prodigy of the Red Bull way. So Bombito's very familiar with his system, and we needed someone to step up in the back who can play that right sided, very fast. I think he was clocked as the fastest player in MLS. He's so young, raw, and now he's had a couple reps under his belt with Canada, and he's really impressed me. And Daryl Cornelius is just, in my opinion, a better player than Kamal Miller.
He
hands
was
down.
really good.
Yeah.
He was really good against
Hands
France
down.
and Netherlands.
So
Okay,
that should the back four should be Davies at left back, which provides unbelievable coverage, especially with the speed for Cornelius. So does Bombito. Those 3 work so well, and then Alistair Johnson. It should be as easy as that, and that was the back four we saw both times. So I agree with Jesse.
Okay, JD, I just want to get your opinion on Halgrimsson. Is he the best coach Jamaica's had this century?
I would say I think that Schaefer is slightly better than him because he's equally as organized, but also more effective going forward in an organized fashion. Something that you can identify, and that's the only time I've seen analysis stated that Jamaica is a real threat was under Schaefer's. If he had these better players, I think he would have had us in the top 3 by now. Stapled in the top 3. That's what I think.
Okay. I think I agree with that. Pete, last question I got. Where's the U.S. go out in the Copa America?
Quarterfinal. I was going to say this. I think we get out of our group, and then we face either Brazil or Colombia in the quarterfinal, and we go home. I don't trust this team to beat a Brazil or a Colombia in a competitive game. Like, Brazil is going to show up I know Brazil has their problems right now, but they're not going to show up against the U.S. I had a contact tell me that before the U.S. game, Brazil only knew Johnny and Pulisic. So they did not take this game seriously at all. And so I just think they're going to show up very different. And we also got lucky, right? 11 saves from Matt Turner. And Colombia I don't think it's going to be close if we face them in the quarterfinal. I mean, not only are they good, they're so well coached and so disciplined and so tactically flexible. They change the rhythm at will. They move into different shapes at will. It's unbelievable how well coached this Colombia team is.
Okay. I was kind of hoping you were going to say semis so we could have a mini argument, but I completely agree. I appreciate you guys for inviting me on. I'd love to do this again next episode of the CONCACAF Council. Y'all just let me know, all right?
Yeah, thanks, Jack. It's been fun having you, man.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, of course. It was nice meeting you guys.
Yep.
So real quick, I'll just go into why I'm pessimistic about the U.S., and it's going to be the obvious. It's Berhalter, right? I've been for 5 years known that this guy is not it. He's not the guy to take this team to the heights that I think they can go to. He's getting bare minimum Berhalter, and I think that's kind. Honestly, the World Cup, we should have got out of our group. We did. Then we got dog walked by the Netherlands. Even in CONCACAF, he does the absolute bare minimum. I mean, we qualified for the World Cup on goal difference. We could have had that New Zealand, and in fact, if that goal that Jamaica scored against us away, which was a legitimate goal, hadn't been called off, we would have switched places with Costa Rica, and we would be the one facing New Zealand for a spot in the World Cup. So and just even his CONCACAF record. Sure, we beat Mexico, right? And that's really all he has to his claim. We couldn't top the group in World Cup qualifying. We frequently shit the bed outside the U.S. in CONCACAF. There's just he's not tactically flexible. We're going to run 4-3-3 to death. He can't break down a low block. His game management is terrible, and he's the most uninspiring wet mop I have ever seen coach a game of soccer. And that is it. And I'm not saying the players are all blameless. I think some of these players are a little bit, they don't have the same hunger and desire as previous generations to prove themselves. But I think a lot of that comes from the coach.
That was kind of what I wanted to kind of interject a little bit. I know the players love him. So let me put on my
I'm going to say some of the players love him.
But let me put on my psychology cap. Do they love him because they know that no matter how bad they do, they will never get blamed for it? They'll blame him. So if I'm a player, I'm in a situation where dude loves me. If I play bad, it's never my fault. It's his fault. Why would I want to be out of that situation if I'm comfortable?
Well, I think that could be part of it. I do think it's more that the players who like him are the ones that get carte blanche to do whatever they want in the team, right? It's the quote unquote leaders of the team. So Christian Pulisic obviously loves him, fought for him, even criticized people who didn't want him re-signed. Weston McKennie, these days, Weston McKennie, I still think has a lot to prove. He loves him. Tyler Adams loves him. Those are the three leaders of this team. Tim Weah as well. They start every game if they're healthy, right? There are other players that don't feel quite the same way about Greg Berhalter, but they're not going to go against the leaders of the team. So why they love him, that could be part of it. But that's starting to change. Fans turned on the players after that Colombia loss too, and they got a lot of criticism.
Did they? I mean, I'll be honest, because I'm not like really big on it, but for me, what it seems like if I'm a U.S. player, I'm living my best life because no matter how bad I do, it's never my fault, and I'm always told how good I am because of where I play. So it's like I'm never living a life where I have to really deal with true scrutiny because where I play, I'm not really that top dog at that top league, even though you're in the top 5 leagues. So I don't get that scrutiny. And then over here, I'm never going to get the scrutiny because it's always the coach's fault. And it's kind of like they're living that cush life, it almost feels like. And there's that weird friction that you need to really create a diamond that's not existing.
Yeah, maybe that's true to a degree, but I will say these guys are fighting for spots. Like Weston McKennie has been heavily criticized by Juve fans, even despite having a relatively good season. Pulisic is being made fun of in Italy for only scoring against, bottom table teams. They have plenty of scrutiny in the clubs they play for, right? So I don't think it's so much that, but is there a chance that they liked Greg Berhalter because they don't get scrutinized? Maybe. I think it's these players play so differently against for the U.S. than they do for their clubs. You see fire when they play for their clubs. You see hunger. You see intensity. You see accountability. And they come to the U.S. Chris Richards, for example, excellent for Crystal Palace this year. Every time he plays for the U.S., goofs up the ball, doesn't seem that interested. Like even that goal that Brazil scored, I think Richards should have gotten tighter. He was culpable on several goals against Colombia. It is telling that almost every single player on this team, except for Gio Reyna, probably one of the few, and maybe Pulisic is about the same. Almost every player on this team plays worse for the U.S. than they do for their clubs. And I think that is very telling of who is in charge. And I do think that Greg's wet mop personality and cringe level, like halftime talks and PowerPoint presentation. I mean, he gave them an American history class in this last camp. No, I'm serious. A Civil War history class in this last camp. Like the levels of like what the fuck is going on are very obvious for there to see. But I think you have a good point that the players need to take some accountability. I think we saw some of that against Colombia. And I think if we see wet mop performances from the players in Copa America, Greg will get the majority of the blame, but these players will too, especially the ones who wanted him back. Like they asked for this. They defended this. They endorsed it.
2 things. I love the phrase wet mop. Number 1, it's never going to not be funny. And number 2, do you know for a fact whether or not he had states' rights in that presentation?
I have no idea what was in that presentation, but it was he treats them like kids, right? You saw that. I don't know if you guys saw that video where he's like, hey guys, How do we convince the world that we're good? And he made them go one by Weston. How about you? Win. All right, good. Hey, Mark,
Good.
how do we do that? Oh, win. Weston just said that. Good, Mark. Like the levels of like idiocy this guy manages to find with every new cat. It's just so, and frustrating. And I don't want us to get grouped. But the one silver lining is if we get grouped, we're hopefully done with Greg. Hopefully, although I don't trust U.S. soccer. The way this team was talking about this being a stepping stone to 2026 and a learning experience, it's like we're singing Kumbaya in kindergarten together. It's like, we're going to play blocks. Everything's about learning.
That doesn't sound like a man under fire.
No, not at all. And maybe he feels really comfortable with the job. U.S. soccer is a mess. Maybe not as bad as the Jamaican Federation but certainly we have plenty of our own problems. So I think we'll get out of the group, though. I think Panama will be naive. I think we'll find a way to squeak out a win against Bolivia. I think it will be tougher than Jack thinks it's going to be. And then I think Uruguay and or Brazil or Colombia are going to school us. And then the media will go, job done. Hey, guys, we got out of the group. That's all you can expect. What do you expect us to beat Brazil? Do you expect us to beat Colombia? No. Be quiet, wave your pom-poms, buy your churros, and shut the fuck up because most of you should not have an opinion about this team. So that's, what I think will happen. I'm open to Greg and the players. If we play like we did against Brazil, I think we have a chance to make a semifinal. But
So
we need to show up like we did against Brazil in every single game. And we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Pete needed to vent. That's what this was all about, isn't it? It's just a little
Yeah.
little therapy session for you.
Pretty much. It's been people get tired of hearing me and Tax say the same thing for 5 years now, but we keep saying the same thing because it keeps happening. It's like we're done. We want to talk about something else. We do, but the same shit keeps happening over and over again.
I've been there.
Agreed.
How many of the previous council episodes was I saying the same thing over and over and over and over again? And then next thing you know, 7-0 against Spain. It's like, come on, guys. I told you this was going to happen. I'm with you. I feel you. I understand.
All right, guys. This has been an hour and 20 minutes. Thanks for hanging. I know most of you got to go. I got to go as well.
Yep.
Guys, IMAX at football for JJD TV. For JD, I'm sorry.
Yes, IMAX it. Yeah,
IMAX
or
it football.
if you want to use any one of them.
And then Josh, you're JJD TV, right? To follow.
Yes,
Canada.
sir.
Are you on YouTube yet, Eddie? You were for a bit and then you stopped, right?
I'm too busy, man. I got like multiple jobs.
So CRC_football for Twitter is where you can follow.
No underscore though, just CRC football.
Oh, CRC football. Okay. And then Jack is you can follow him at what's the name of his channel?
Deadball TV.
I'm about to follow him right now.
Deadball, yeah, Deadball TV.
Deadball TV, I think.
Deadball TV. Thank you. I got confused with him and Give and Go. Thanks, guys. Have a great one. Smash that like button, and we'll talk to you all soon.